Our special guest today is the president of the PNA, the Polish National Alliance, and the Polish American Congress, Al Mazewski. Just made beef stroganoff, and I've got to try it. You don't mind, do you?
You should. Go right
yeah,
ahead.
I will. Okay. In other words, you want a quick review.
First, I'll have you try it. Then I'll try it because I know how it's going to taste.
I see.
Well, we could really beef that up a bit if we had Polish mushrooms, Polish dried mushrooms.
Makes a difference?
Makes a total difference in the whole beef stroganoff. It's a different taste.
This is good.
Because the mushrooms that we generally get on these white mushrooms, there isn't too much flavor in them. But if you take a good Polish imported mushroom, it's a difference. Just even taking one or two and dropping it into a bowl of mushroom soup makes a terrific difference. And this is what we use, is good Polish mushrooms.
And also, I might add that even when you go into a restaurant and you order mushroom soup with Polish mushrooms, it costs a little more.
Of course,
yeah.
Of course.
There's a reason for it.
Well, it's about $100 a pound, those Polish mushrooms, the last time that I heard about. But it does make a difference. You only need one or two. And this quantity, this would have been a very, very expensive meal.
Is that right?
If we had that many Polish mushrooms.
All right.
So
Did you
try that?
Go.
Very good.
Very good. Bardzo dobre.
Dobre.
Bardzo dobre.
Wyśmienite.
Wyśmienite. That's right. That's what the guy says all the time. Now, you do a lot of traveling, and you're out always on the road. Very recently, you got an honorary doctorate degree in Albany, New York. You delivered a commencement address there. Then you flew to California. You do a lot of traveling. Very recently, you were even with the president. How did it? Well, that's not the first time with President Reagan or with other presidents. Am I right or wrong?
No, that's true.
What did you find out it was different with Reagan than the others? Meeting with him.
It's very difficult to explain each particular president without trying to take away something from the past presidents. But every president that we've met, and that's about, well, it's 5 already that we've had an opportunity to have many meetings with, differs in his mannerism, and he's different as to how he comes, how he appears to you. Now with President Reagan, he's very friendly. Once you meet him and you're in his presence, you feel as though you've been a friend of his for years.
I see.
He's concerned. He's got a lot of compassion. I know when I watched the Man of Steel during the Solidarity days, why he even had tears in his eyes watching that film. But he comes on real nice and gentle. Now, other presidents were a little more stiff.
Carter?
Carter, again, was a little nervous when he would be with people. But his sincerity was protruding. But he was not comfortable with many people. Many times I watched his hand when he would be in a line, receiving line. He'd been just nervous about it. But he was, you liked him because you felt that you're just like him too. You get nervous, especially when you have so many other people.
What about Ford?
Ford, again, was to me, he was like a real congressman. He was a citizen, like he was talking to his constituent in the backyard. He admitted certain things he didn't know. I remember when we had the Helsinki process, and he took me aside. He says, you know, you better sit next to me because sometimes I'm a little confused on the radios, whether it's Radio Free Europe or Radio Liberty at times. So it took a great man to admit he wanted to be perfect. So he was he was about the most friendliest president in the White House.
Johnson, did you ever?
Johnson, I met him twice. Now Johnson was a little too, to me, he was a little too officious, and he was a different type of an individual. He was more like a real strong, positive politician, where things that he said had to be, that there was no room for argument or discussion. Nixon was the same. Nixon was, as far as his opinions and so forth, you couldn't discuss. But with Carter, you could interrupt the conversation. You could interrupt the conversation with the President Reagan, and definitely with Ford. But with these other two, you couldn't, in a way. You didn't feel proper.
You didn't feel that comfortable, huh?
No, you didn't feel that comfortable. But one thing about Nixon, he was a doer. He was a doer. If there's certain things had to be done, he did. And if there's certain matters came up that some of his assistants didn't take care of, he immediately would call them and say, now what happened? What happened? Why wasn't this done? Or things of that type. So he was vitally interested, and he apparently knew most of the inner workings and little problems that some of the people had.
All right, now you're the head of the PNA, the Polish National Alliance, has a membership of over 300,000 nationally. You have your convention coming up in September. Now I understand right at the tail end of your convention, dovetailed, will be His Holiness coming into Detroit. Now you'll be seeing His Holiness there?
Yes.
First time, second, third, many times?
I met His Holiness in '69 when I visited Pope Paul VI at that time, and I made a petition to ask for more bishop of Polish Americans in areas that was heavily concentrated, like Detroit and areas of that type. I spoke with him as a cardinal at that time, and then I met him again as a cardinal when he came to the United States, and then of course we had a meeting here. During his coronation, I was sent by President Carter as one of the delegates to the coronation with Dan Rostenkowski and Tip O'Neill and others, and Zablocki, and we flew Air Force One there to attend the installation or coronation of the Pope. So then we met him. I met him twice after that in Rome, and I have an occasion again to meet him. But we definitely, as far as our convention goes, will end on the morning of September the 19th. And that afternoon, we'll have buses to go out to Detroit. And on Saturday, we'll have an opportunity to meet with the Pope for a while.
How does the butcher boy from Bucktown feel meeting all these dignitaries?
Well, this is part of America. It feels great. It feels great because you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
And something that you wouldn't have in any other country. And here, at least, the opportunities are there, and it's a great feeling. It's a great satisfying feeling to know that you're trying to do something for the people you represent, but by the same token, you're building a better America. And by the fact that, well, the best thing is President Reagan flew in with 3 helicopters in our backyard at the Polish National Alliance in 1983.
That was on North Cicero Avenue?
Right, right, absolutely, after he became president.
What happened when he was coming over? There was a tremendous amount of security checks and everything?
Well, the security was tremendous. It had to be for many reasons. The number of people were limited because everyone had to be checked out because it's an open space. So they checked the entire building on Cicero because it's right next to Eden's. They had dogs running around to see if there's any bombs or anything of that type. And they had riflemen on the roof just in case because it's open space. It's ironic that in this day and age that those precautions have to be taken because of the terrorists and people that are a little off that would create these acts of violence. But it was very impressive when you have 3 Marine helicopters fly in your backyard. You have a real massive load of people.
Mr. President, what did it do to your ego?
Well, the only thing it did to my ego is when one reporter says to me, well, how are you going to top that? I said, well, very simple. I'm going to try to get the Pope to fly in my backyard.
And if I know you, you probably will.
And I'm working on it.
You are? Seriously? You think he might come to Chicago?
No, I figured it out, and I can well understand it. The cost of bringing the Pope is tremendous. Do you know the Pope's visit, the cost of it has to be picked up by every archdiocese. But in addition thereto, they have to pay for every policeman that is being used, all the security, they have to pay. They got to pay their salary. So no city picks up the big tab of what's involved. So transferring the Pope with his big entourage would be an enormous task, and it would be a very expensive task. Therefore, I can well understand it. But we'll have a chance to talk to him.
Yeah, and if I know you, you're going to convince him to do it sometime in the future.
In the future, yeah. Well, at the present time. I'd never let it alone. I'm going to keep on working on it.